myself. Got to manage my mind. The task is not easy, but the higher heights I climb.
I'm determined to succeed, so no excuses, please. If you don't want success in life, then don't hinder me. You are a CEO. You are a CEO.
Got to manage my mind. The task is not easy, but the higher heights I climb.
I'm determined to succeed, so no excuses, please. If you don't want success in life, then don't hinder me. You are a CEO. You are a CEO. The time is here to celebrate. Success is calling, so don't be late.
myself, got to manage my mind. The task is not easy, but the higher heights I climb.
I'm determined to succeed, so no excuses, please. If you don't want success in life, then don't hinder me. You are a CEO. You are a CEO.
I've got to manage myself, I've got to manage my mind. The task is not easy, but the higher heights I climb.
I'm determined to succeed, so no excuses, please. If you don't want success in life, then don't hinder me.
Hello everyone, I'm Michael E. Parker and we're here for another show on CEO TV Live, and I'm so glad to be with you here today, and this is the right place. We are talking tonight about I'm the CEO of my career. So as you can see on the screen there, we're talking about being the CEO of our careers, and it is April 29th. And I want to announce a few things to you before I really jump in. Now, you can see here, this is Monday night, April 29th, live stream at 6 p.m. But what we're going to be doing going forward, we're going to be moving into a new format. And that new format, our show is going to be about 30 minutes long, so we're going to cut the time in half. We're going to be jumping right into the substance, and we're going to start our shows at 6:30. So I want you to keep that in mind. We're going to be starting our shows at 6:30 p.m. So that's our new start time, that's Pacific Standard Time, so be on the lookout, and we're going to be launching this career series to really show our new time. So that being said, we have a lot to talk about tonight. We're talking about being the CEO of our career. And tonight I want to start this whole series off with a personal coaching session from me and kind of coaching you through understanding the differences between a job, a career, and some of the dynamics, and even using some of my personal journey to explore how do we really discover more about our career. And this will kick off into several shows that we'll have that we'll learn more and more about this thing we call career, right? So this is important. So I want to jump right in here. So when we think about a job, now when you think about the word job, you know, a lot of times we think about, you know, what does that really mean? And we think about a job, and we've also heard the word career. Now, both of these are critical words, and we associate them both with money. Now, when we think about that, we think about jobs, we think about careers, we think about money, there's a few things that I want you to understand. Now, when we think about putting our effort into a job, a lot of times when we think about jobs, we want to think specifically about a way to create income for ourselves. Now, there's no one that is not trying to create income. We all are trying to create income. So when you think about the different types of jobs that are out there, one of the fundamental things that is really crucial is we're thinking about us as individuals. When we, as an individual, we say, okay, if I'm going to put a certain amount of effort into a job, right? So here is our effort. We put our time. And then these jobs is what we use to generate income. Now, when we're thinking about a job mentality is very simple. It is only thinking about what do I want to put my effort into to get a return of income or money back to myself. My mindset is really not about a career. My mindset is about survival and what do I have to do to make money. So when you think about a job, keep that in mind because there's a lot of ways to make money. There's a lot of ways to earn income. And basically it's an exchange from my time and my effort for that income. But when you think about a job, I want to really break this up into a few different things. Now, you know, a lot of people will say a lot of different things. There's people in different walks of life. Some people have a lot of money. They had a good start. They had a family that was maybe well off. Some people started from a tougher background, a harder, standpoint. They didn't have as much resources. So, you know, sometimes there's different perspectives on what a job is and what a job is for. But let's just take a fundamental preliminary look at just a basic two-step process at looking at a job, right? I want to look at it through two different lenses. So the first lens that I want to look at, when we think about a job, you know, there is the point of getting a job really to do one thing, which is to pay the bills, okay? So this is one phase of a job. Now, when we look at the phase of a job with regard to paying the bills, so a lot of times we're thinking about, I have to look at what I actually need in my life at this time. Now, I know some of us in all of our life, when we were starting off, we were thinking about if you were trying to get out on your own, if you were getting an apartment, or if you, at some point in your life, were trying to kind of move up the ladder and try to figure things out for yourself. You had to think about basically what does it cost you to live? What is your bills, at the end of the day? And you're thinking about what type of job could I get that could cover those bills. And sometimes people work more than one job to cover those bills. So this is one element of thinking about a job. Now, there's another side to this, though, that I want to introduce to you. This is about paying the bills. But there's another aspect of a job, which is to build skills, okay? Now, this is a little bit different. Now we're talking about it's still a job, but I can take jobs that actually help me to build skill. Now, I want you to think about that. There are times that maybe in our journey, we had to take, and I'm going to give you some of my story here in a little bit, so you want to really stay around for that. I'm going to have to disclose some things in my journey. That'll be pretty interesting. But when you think about your journey, there's times we have to take a job, not because it's what we want to do, not because we're thinking about a career, and not because there's even skills involved that we like. We purely are paying the bills. It's great when you can transition over to this side where I'm starting to take jobs that not only pay the bills, but I'm also building skills. So when you have a job, it's still not quite at the career level yet, but I'm at a job where the skills are relevant to making me a better professional. It's relevant to making me more marketable. So you have to start somewhere. And this is why a job is a great place to start to build that muscle in your life that is able to take skills and make them something you can use to actually build opportunity later on. So I want you to keep this in mind. Again, a job is where we exchange effort and time, right, for money. And that is very simple. But in the beginning, sometimes we have to do that to pay the bills. But we have to also notice when we transition to actually taking jobs that actually build skill. So the more that you can move into that arena, the better. Now, let's talk about, we talked about a job, let's talk a little bit about a career. Now, how do you get to a career? Now, when we think about this word career, this is a much bigger word. Now, you notice in this word career is the word car. So I want you to think about, you got to know where you're driving. Where are you trying to go when you think about your career? Now, a lot of times we think about a job, we might say, sometimes people will say, I want to be a dentist. I want to be a professional. I want to be a photographer. I want to be a hairstylist. I want to achieve a specific job title. But a job title is not a career, right? A career is actually a specific area and arena that you want to grow in. Now, I want you to keep this in mind. So a career, when we think about a career, we're really thinking about something that is an environment, right, that I can consistently begin to grow. So now we're talking about growth. So careers are related. A lot of times we can think about industries, we can think about environment as well, because we have to think about what type of industry or what type of environment do I want to grow in. So I want you to think about that for a minute. When I'm thinking about a career, it's not just a one stop. So if I say I want to have a career in the medical industry, then I can take several jobs and continue to grow in that industry. If I want to take a career in marketing, I wouldn't say I want to take a career as a marketing specialist. That's a job, right? My career might want to be in marketing. I want to get in that environment and I want to continually grow. I might start here and end up way up here as I begin the journey. I might start off as a specialist and I might end up as a director, or I might grow into an executive, or whatever that might be. I might want to be in several different elements of a specific industry. So again, when we think about a career, we want to think about growth. So how many of you out there, as you started, you're kind of listening in to me tonight, I want you to think about, have you thought about, are you in a job right now? Are you in a career right now? So feel free to put some comments there right here live and kind of talk to each other. Are you in a job or are you in a career? Now, if you're, you have to be in a job, right? We all got to have a job, but a job with a consciousness of the environment I'm in and how I want to grow is what makes it a career. So we have to start to think about that. So a lot of times we want a career, but we're thinking about a job. So we have to start having a broader mindset and a broader thinking, because if you're really in a career, that means you should have several jobs within that career, because a career is always growing. So having that in mind, I want to talk a little bit more about maybe how to explore that journey of a career. But some things I want to say about jobs and careers that I think is also very important. Now, I mentioned the word environment. So sometimes you should also think about, when you're thinking about your career, you should think about what type of environment do you want to work in, right? So sometimes, there are people that like to be outside, right? There are people that like the desk environment, the office environment, and so forth. There are people that like to talk to people a lot. There are people who like to work alone, right? So when we think about some of these different dynamics of an environment, we also have to ask, what type of careers lend more to these types of environments that I might prefer, or even skills that I prefer to use? And that's why there's a direct connection between jobs that I've taken, where I start to acquire certain skills, and me starting to explore what type of career or environment or industry that I want to be in, or I can use those skills that I found that I'm good at. So there's a connection that has to be made between the jobs that I've taken, the career that I'm thinking I might like, and then beginning to grow in that career to confirm that it's what I thought it would be. And this is why sometimes people end up changing careers, right? Because they start to see what they thought a career was. As they start to use their skills, it's not achieving what they thought. They're not feeling the way that they would feel. Now, having said this, I want to use an example. I'm going to use a personal example here and kind of walk through. Now, what do y'all think my first job was, my first real job? What do y'all think out there was my first job? Why don't y'all just think about it? You know, just put it right there in the stream. You know, you can put some comments down there. And what do y'all think was my first job? And, you know, I don't think you all are going to be able to guess it, but I'm going to give you a little hint. I started off wearing a red vest. And I had on a red vest, and I was walking around a certain store. So I'm going to go ahead and let you know what it was. So I actually started working. Let me give you a hint here. This is a Target, and that's exactly where I started off working, at Target with my red vest on. And I started off at Target. I was in high school, and yes, I was walking the aisles. I was stocking shelves. This was not a career at all, right? So this was a job. And, you know, I learned some discipline. I was able to learn a little bit about merchandising and different, you know, things of that sort. But it definitely was not a career. It was definitely a job. But think about it. I had to start somewhere. Now I'm not going back to, you know, little things you did when you were a kid or something for money. This was like the first time. It was kind of like a real job. Now, a few other things in my journey just to kind of explore. So here you have, you know, Target, another milestone for me. You know, I remember even going through school. I'll mention UCSF in the risk management department. So I was able to do some work in an office where they were doing risk management for the University of San Francisco. Now, again, you know, this is not something I'm particularly interested in, but it was a job, and it taught me more things. And it was my first time going out to the city, taking BART and having to get out there or using public transportation and go to this job taught me a lot about discipline and skill, and being able to take skills that I had learned and acquired and use them in a very different environment. It was an office setting. So again, it was a job, but not really the career. I'm still exploring and trying to find that. Now, in the meantime, you know, in this journey, you also have some of the things that you go through in your education. So, you know, I'm mentioning this about kind of the job front, but kind of, you know, parallel to this, you know, you have things happening like, you know, where you're going to college, right? And on the college front, I started to think a lot about what I might want to do in college, and I ended up finding a kind of an arena there in operations. So I started to think about, you know, I'm noticing I really like things regarding operations. So things that have to do with how things work, how things actually come together to make something happen. And I also saw that I like business. So these were all some indicators, because after going through the college scene, I started to see things that stood out to me, and kind of wrapping up college, taking some of these work experiences and remembering certain things about them. And this just began to continue on, right? Your education, you continue to keep learning. But the next area, again, straight out of my scholastic experience, I was actually hired by Toyota. So this is, again, another major jump in my career, because I was hired by Toyota, and I started off at Toyota as a buyer. And I was responsible for buying a lot of the parts and materials that they used to build the vehicles. And so, again, I couldn't say that this was a career, but it was a job, a good paying job, my first kind of really good paying job. And now something's starting to form. And I'm telling you this for a reason, because you have to understand your personal journey on how this all begins to transform for you. And it feels like it's never over. It's always growing. Now, Toyota was a great place for business and also for operations. So this was a great place for operations. I went to Japan. I started to understand more about operations. Now, again, this was a great place where in an environment, I could have built a career at Toyota and been able to stay in business and in operations and grow in a career in operations within Toyota. That was very possible to do. Now, a few things I want to sprinkle in here that was also going on. While all this was going on and happening, another big thing in my life was, I did a lot of work with youth, with people in the community. So, I did a lot of things with community, things around helping people. So I also noticed I liked community and I liked helping people. So doing things to help people, helping other youth, leveraging things in my own personal journey. Now I'm looking at all these factors, right? And now here we are at Toyota. Now, amazingly, while I was at Toyota, I got the crazy idea of starting my own business. And so coming from Toyota and taking the big leap to now become an entrepreneur. Now, this is absolutely scary, right? Frightening. But I left Toyota and I started my first company. And what I began to discover is that when starting a business, I also understood, even when I was in Toyota, I was also very visionary. Everything, the assignments they gave me, I always had a lot of vision. So even though they were giving me a job, I was saying, but what about if we could do this? We could do this too, and we could help them do this over here. When it was hard problems to solve, when it was issues to resolve, they brought me in to solve problems. So I started to notice that I was a problem solver. I was visionary. I loved operations. I liked helping people. And so then when I started to take this and start businesses, I started to notice, and this is again kind of where the ahas come in, is that my real career is an individual that likes to start and manage businesses that solve problems and that help people. And in the end, I found that that is really the environment that I choose to keep growing in. And it's never over. Even though I'm a CEO, that job of a CEO changes when I opened a beauty salon. It changed when I opened a technology company. It changed when I opened a consulting company. But one thing that was universal in all of that is I loved being visionary. I loved solving problems. And I loved helping people. And so I found something for me in entrepreneurship that allowed me to do that and turned it into a career for me. Now this is, again, I want you to see this because sometimes in your journey, you have to explore a few different things. You got to explore those jobs that you took because you needed to pay the bills, right? And from that, you understood how you start taking some jobs where now I was building skill, right? As well as going and learning. And this is also another area where we begin to build skill. And then you also got to look at some of the soft things that are within you, things that you really feel on the inside that that you can tell there's a passion there. There's something there that almost happens naturally, something that makes you feel good when you do it. And this is where some of the community came. So then next thing I'm looking for is an environment to use those things. Now, Toyota is a place, maybe I could have done that to a point, but it did have limitation because I couldn't fully be visionary. I couldn't fully help people. I couldn't fully solve the problem sometime because of the scope of control. So it worked out for me to move into entrepreneurship because now I had full autonomy to have full vision. I could have full ability to solve a problem, and I also could help people to the extent that I wanted to help people. And this is, again, what we're talking about. So in looking at all of this, I want you to remember the three things that we discussed here tonight. And I hope you got this. We kind of had a coaching session here tonight, but this is really important. If you got what I went over here tonight, it'll really help you in your own personal journey and understanding your career. So we talked about a job versus a career. We talked about how a job is an exchange from time and effort for money. And there's two ways to do that: a job that focuses on paying the bills, or a job that you know is not just paying the bills. There are real skills that you're developing that can help you grow as a professional. But transitioning from that, we discussed that a career is an actual place of growth. It's choosing the environment that you want to grow in. It's not a job, right? It's an environment you want to grow in. So that's why when someone asks you what your career is, you shouldn't say a job title, right? You should mention an industry. You should mention something bigger. You should mention a craft, something you want to grow in. And so, again, this is something that we discussed, and that growth and that journey, it starts by the jobs that we take, the self-discovery that we begin to understand, and we put all of that together, and when we find a place where all of those things are being fulfilled, then you just keep walking that path and growing into your career. Now, I want you to remember this, though. Once we understand our career, is it possible to be in a career and as you're growing in that career to realize that that career is no longer having the fulfillment that you want? Absolutely it is. And so what that means is when we start to understand that, then we take that whole journey, for example, my journey as an entrepreneur, and we chalk that up as learning as well. And now that puts us to one more word that I want to say, which is reinvention. And reinvention can come when we start to look where I'm looking at my career and I hit a point in that career where there's options, right? And this is what we often talk about as career paths. So sometimes we go through this journey like I did, and we find our career path. So I had a Toyota path, right? But I made a choice to go down the entrepreneur path, right? But it doesn't mean that sometimes I might not find myself right back at where I started and actually chart a new path. I might grow as a person. I might change as a person. And there's nothing wrong with then coming back and seeing if there's somewhere else that I might need to go. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to challenge yourself. We're always growing. We're always changing. And for us to be the CEO of our career, I want to leave you with this in closing. Out of all of this that we talked about, our subject tonight is really being the CEO of your career. What does a CEO do? A CEO has to make decisions. A CEO executes on the decisions that are best for the business. When you think about the business of you, the way you become the CEO of your career is you have to notice the things we talked about tonight and make the right decisions to put yourself in the best environment for you to grow in your career. So this is what we mean by being the CEO of your career. And I hope you take this information that you gained tonight, think about your journey, think about your life, and think about what's going on now and what is to come, and wrap that all up to think about making the career and the environment for growth that you want for yourself. Thank you very much, and I want to now, this has been a great topic for tonight, but this is just the beginning. This is our first show to kick off the series, and we've got another show that I want to tell you about. But before I do that, as our custom is, I want to tell you about a few things before we go. I want everyone here to remember to go to urco.com. If you have not become a member of the movement, make sure you go to urco.com, register, download our applications. We have apps in the App Store. Find out as much as you can about what we're doing at URCO. So if you're listening to this show, this is not just about having a show. If you're watching this on Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're at, this is bigger. This is a movement. This is everyday living. This is what we do. We are CEOs of our future, and we're taking control of our lives. If you want to join us, register and become a part of what we're doing. Another thing that I want to tell you about, these three words, I often say it: live, learn, and earn. The live has to do with us living a life that is centered around mind fitness. We want our minds to be fit so we can stay the CEOs of our life. And so some of you know about our application Uplift, where we talk about living uplifted and keeping our mind elevated. So if you come into URCO, you'll find out how to do that. And then there's the learning side. We're always trying to learn. If you like what you heard tonight, this is just a little bit of what you'll find in our product. Make sure you get inside our club and learn as much as you can about the URCO mentality, the URCO spirit, so that you can continue to grow as a CEO. And last but not least, you can earn. So we are actually excited that we have a tiered affiliate program where if you love what you're hearing, if you love what this movement is about, you can share it with others and you can earn. So we're tired of what's going on online where all the money's going to the big advertisers. We want to share the money with you. Find out how by becoming a part of the URCO movement. Now, having said that, our next show, it is called The Journey of a Friend, and that will be on May 6th, and I will be joined by a very close friend. We went to college together and everything, and I'm going to show you about her journey from college all the way to a high-powered executive in her career in human resources. And we're going to see how some of these things I talked about came to life for a personal friend. And then we'll continue from that show to many more. So go on this journey with us. We're marching and learning more about our careers because it's about us living the life that we want to the fullest and making sure that our careers are working for us, because no matter what type of CEO you are, we always have to be in control of our future. Thank you very much for tuning in. And as we often say, you run the business of you and let the whole world know that you are a CEO. Good night.
Yes, let the whole world know you are a CEO. You are a CEO. I'm a CEO. You are a CEO. I'm a CEO. The time is here to celebrate. You are a CEO.
Got the